All right, we are continuing and hopefully concluding Mishlei 21:27. Oh, there we go. Hello. Here you go. Zevach Roshaim Toeva, Af Ki Bezima Yivieno. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination. Af Ki, whatever that means, they bring it Bezima. And okay, so Af Ki is the most difficult part of the pasuk I've come to accept. Even, also, surely, I think Sadigon had said especially, Bifrat, right? Especially, I think that's what he said. Yeah. Ki, because or when they bring it, Bezima, which is scheming, licentiousness, transgression, neutral premeditation. Who suggested that yesterday?
I said that.
You did. Okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's I liked I like that addition. I don't have an idea for it, but that was a good way to differentiate it from scheming. Okay. All right. So we had a host of questions. What type of sacrifice is this talking about? I'm just going to replace this with the word zevach here, just to make it more accurate. What type of zevach is this talking about? What does af or af ki mean in this context? What is the hava mina or chiddush in each half? Why are both halves necessary? Especially if if you take the premise here that we know, I guess depending on what you assume that the reader of Mishlei knows about korbanos, then this is obvious, more or less obvious. 4, what does to'eva mean in this context? In whose framework is it abominable? And I mentioned yesterday that, the general assumption is it's in Hashem's framework, but maybe creativity can lead you elsewhere. 5, why is the Rasha bringing this korban? What does he think it's going to accomplish? 6, what is this doing in Mishlei? Many Nevi'im talk about this. What's the chiddush here? Also, Mishlei rarely talks about korbanos or even chukim. Okay, there are a couple of psukim, but this is one of them. 7 is bezima, qualifying the act of bringing, meaning af ki bezima yivienu, like he's bringing it bezima, or is zima qualifying the Rasha himself? What do we mean by that?
Is he in a state of zima?
Oh, he's in a state of zima, right? In other words, is it describing the act of bringing, or because he's a Rasha who is in a state of zima, then any bringing that he does? Basically, the nafkamina would be, can a Rasha bring a korban not bezima, right? Yeah. And if it is the former, meaning if it is the act of zima, so then why limit it to Rashayim? What if a regular guy brings a korban bezima, right? 8, who's the audience of the pasuk? And I want to be clear here, okay? I don't think we said this explicitly last time, Lily. Who's the audience of the pasuk? Seemingly not the Rasha, right? Mishlei does not talk to Rashayim. Was that always off? Or did that just go off now? Okay, fine. Back. Okay. Mishlei doesn't really talk to Rashayim because Rashayim don't really change, at least not through Mishlei. So then who? And then 9, what is the subject of the pasuk? Is it korbanos? Is it Rashayim? Is it zima activity? Yeah.
We also have practical application of it.
Yeah, sure. On to the pasuk. Yeah. Well, here's the interesting thing.
I think there's a reason why you didn't say yesterday.
Yeah. Why didn't I say it yesterday?
You didn't say why. I don't think you said why you didn't say yesterday, but I'm assuming a reason why.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. No, you tell me. Why don't we ask that here? I mean, I'm not saying it's bad to ask it, but why would we not list it?
Okay, I'm assuming there is something to take practically of the pasuk.
Say it again.
I would assume that there's something practically to take of the pasuk.
Right.
So I see why it wouldn't be a question. Okay,
fine. I'll list it, and the reason why I wouldn't normally list it is it seems like the practical implication is don't bring a korban bezima, right? Unless you're a Rasha, but then, sorry, not unless you're a Rasha. If you're a Rasha, but then the question is going to be that's going to be contained in the question of who's the audience, In other words, once we identify the audience, it's, then it would seem to follow here that that audience should not bring a korban, but I guess we spelled out.
I've seen it mean just the way that my intuition would have taken me to think that this is probably going to end up somewhere of how you relate to Rashayim.
Okay.
The way that they
That's
go about
fair.
doing things, and then notice that this is happening from Rasha.
Okay. All right. Good. So that's why we should list it. Okay. Good. Yeah. Did you have a?
I remember where Zima was in a positive. It's in Samanafshi, the song.
Yeah.
I couldn't find a sitter that translates it because it's kind of obscure.
Interesting. Is that Ibn Ezra one? Hold on.
But that means that, like, if it's in a positive context, then like the pasuk just takes on such a different.
Yeah. I'm asking if this is Ibn Ezra one, because if this is Ibn Ezra versus if this is like a Kabbalistic one. Yeah, this is Ibn Ezra one. Okay, so that means we can assume that he knew what he was doing when he used that word, because he's very, very critical. I don't know if you've ever read his tirade against people who write Piyutim. He's very, very critical. It's not people who write Piyutim per se, it's people who introduce Piyutim into Tefillah. But let's just say he has very, very high standards for precise use of the Hebrew language. And therefore, if he wrote this, then I would give it more weight than if it was like written by some like 17th century, creative spirit, Yeah. Okay. So I'll have to look into that and see.
No, but what if the pasuk like that has such ramifications? Like the pasuk is saying, don't, like, if a guy in your shul is like money laundering, even if he brings it in a positive way, don't accept his zevach like to your shul. Like,
Right. Okay, good. Yeah. So let's put that on hold for a second, because I feel like it's going to take more research in the moment that I have time that I want to use our time for. But yeah. By the way, did you use money laundering because I mentioned that I like Ozark?
That what?
Did you use money laundering as the example because I mentioned the other day that I like the show Ozark, and you said,
"Oh no."
Okay, fine, okay," because I just finished it. I finished it on Sunday, and I'm all caught up, and it's an amazing show. Okay, all right. Anyway, so what I'd like to do, I said yesterday that we should continue developing the approaches we were taking, and I'm not gonna go back on that, but I do want to start off with one concrete approach from the Mefarshim, so we have something, okay, and that is our good old friend the Metzudas David, okay. And after that, I actually want to do one more, which I think is a good foil to Metzudas David. So okay, just by the way, our usual go-to people are Metzudas David, then Rabbeinu Yonah, then Meiri. There is no Rabbeinu Yonah on the pasuk, and then the Meiri batches this with the next two psukim. So we'll have to wait on the Meiri for now, okay. All right, so look at Metzudas David bottom right. Zevach Rashaim. Asher Odam Virishasam, the Eis Yizbuko Korban. So the offering of the Rashaim who are still in their wickedness at the time when they sacrifice the Korban. Ki lo shavu l'Hashem, they did not do tshuva to Hashem. Hine ha-korban hu toeva. Behold, their Korban is an abomination. So he's taking the stance that the thing that makes it a toeva is their state. Okay, that they have not done tshuva. Okay, but then he says afki, the kol shekain. Okay, so he's taking the stance that afki means certainly, or all the more so. Shetoevahi, it is an abomination. Kasher yivienu b'machshava ra'a, when they bring it with an evil plot. L'ramos es habrios, to trick people. L'hachshivo l'tzadik, to make them think that he is a tzadik. V'zoveach l'elokim, and someone who gives korbanos to God. Okay, and I saw. Hold on just a second here. I saw there's another similar pasuk in 15. I have to look up here because the Mefarish I'm going to use is not on the thingy. It's not on. Oh, actually, no, it is. It is. Hold on. Okay, I'll just read from here. So there's a pasuk in 15:8, which says Zevach Rashaim Toavas Hashem Utfilas Yesharim Ritzono. The offering of the Rashaim is an abomination of Hashem, and the tefillah of the upright is his desire or is his favor. So the Tosos Harid, or not Tosos, I always forget if the Tosos Harid is the same as the Rid. This is the Rid. This is Yeshayahu Detrani. He says, what does it mean, Zevach Rashaim? He says, Klamar Afilu Hamasim Atovim She'oseh Harasha Heim To'eva L'Fnei Hashem. Even the good actions that the Rasha does are an abomination to Hashem. Because they don't do them for the sake of heaven. But only to be haughty, the lifshot klapav, and to spread out his hooves. You know what that phrase is from?
Oh, pigs?
The pigs, right? So what does Chazal say about the pigs?
That they say, look at me, I'm kosher.
Yeah.
But then internally they don't.
Exactly, right. Yeah. So they show, look, I'm kosher, right? So it's a phrase that Chazal use for describing people who want others to think that they are religious. Okay. So what I love about the Metzudas David here is what I always love about the Metzudas David when he actually when he actually spells out his idea. Otherwise, it's very hard to get out of the Metzudas David. He's giving us a clean interpretation of each half of the pasuk, okay, to work with here. So Zevach Rashaim Toavas Hashem. Why? Because they still are Rashaim and they don't do tshuva. Okay, and then the second half is saying an added dimension of the toeva, and he's saying kol shekain, right? Kal v'chomer, if they do it bezima, and he's learning bezima as to trick people into thinking that they are tzaddikim and give korbanos to God. Okay. Yeah. Hold on. There was one more source that I thought complemented this. Actually, it complemented something. I can't remember if it complemented this or the other interpretation. Oh yeah. Okay. So I'm going to pair this with something in Tehillim just to allow. Actually, no. Let's figure it out on our own first. And then we'll use the Radak if we need to. Okay. So can we explain this? What do we mean here? So what does it mean that it's a to'eva, the fact that he doesn't do tshuva? Like, why is that abominable? What is the idea of abomination? And then what's the kol shekain for making people think he's a tzaddik? And what's the idea in the pasuk? In fact, that's not what I meant to do. Yeah. So, well, actually, let's do this. I'll do better than repeat the question. So let's just go through and see which of our questions he's answering and which ones need to be answered. So what type of zevach is this talking about? So according to him, what type of zevach?
Something before the kahal, something like a public gathering.
Okay, so number one is public, right? Which is going to be for most korbanos, but no, I take it back. A korban that people are going to know about, right? Meaning like all korbanos take place in the same location, but somehow people are going to know that he brought this. But specifically, what category of korban?
Okay.
No, I don't think so. So something that is associated with tshuva, right? So like a chatas or an asham, right? I mean, depending on, but let's assume chatas for now, okay? And this is foreshadowing another of the mafarshim that we're going to do next, okay?
Well, like something to give thanks, like if he's showing his piousness.
Right. So it's possible that the second half could be talking about that, but it sounds like the starting place that he chooses is that he didn't do tshuva, and I'm going to take him at face value there. I think, in other words, like this, it might be that we can expand the pasuk to other types of korbanos, but the Metzudas David chooses to go with the refusal to do tshuva. Mm-hmm. So I just want to stick with that since we're learning him. Okay, how does he say afki? What does afki mean? All the more so. Okay, so kol shekain. What is the hava amina? So that, or why are both halves necessary? So that I don't think he answers. We need to answer that. What does to'eva mean in this context? That's another question we need to answer. So we know in whose framework it's abominable. It's abominable in Hashem's framework. 5, why is the Rasha bringing the korban? So we know in the second half why he's bringing the korban, right? Is to make people think that he's a tzaddik, right? And in the first half, unclear. But let's just, for the sake of simplicity, let's just assume that this is talking about one instance of the Rasha bringing the korban, that he's bringing it to make people think that he is righteous. So in that case, he's bringing it for the sake of public opinion, right? And there might be more we could say about that, but I think that's good. What is this doing in Mishlei? So we need to answer that question also. 7, is Bezima qualifying the act of bringing or the Rasha himself? So how's he answering this question? Yeah, so it seems to be the act of bringing, right? Theoretically, a Rasha could bring a korban not for tricking people, right? The thing that makes it abominable is the fact that he's a Rasha, but the thing that makes it that makes the full pasuk apply is the fact that he's doing it to trick people. Who's the audience of the pasuk? We don't know yet. Maybe something along the lines of what David was saying about people who are interacting with the Rasha. Okay, possibly. What is the practical application? Possibly there too. But I could see other possibilities. And then what's the subject of the pasuk? Also unclear. So these are the questions we need to answer. Yeah.
I'm starting to have another approach.
Okay, so you could either say it if you think it's going to help us with this approach, or you can hold it.
Okay, I'll hold
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Can you like summarize this approach a little?
Yeah. So the Rasha who brings a korban bezima has 2 faults in the korban. One is he's not doing tshuva. The other is that, and that's being called a to'eva. And then he is, the to'eva increases because he's doing it to trick people. And I think maybe to make people think that he's a tzaddik.
Yeah.
Is that good for Pshat?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think maybe just if you think about, I'm not answering the question, I'm just setting it up more. How does a kol shekain or a kal v'chomer work? Like, what is a kal v'chomer or a kol shekain?
I think the stronger case can apply to anything below that.
The other way around, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, kal v'chomer, that you take the let's say
weaker case ends up being the stronger case because it's a bigger Okay.
Yeah, right. It
Strong,
depends on what you start with, but in other words, I guess So let's try to state it neutrally. You're taking something that exists in a small quantity or degree, right? And you're saying that if this is true here, then it's true even in the larger, the larger case. Is that actually the way that it's applying here? No. The point I'm trying to bring out here is that I think one thing that we see from the Metzudas David is these are not two separate faults. It's in other words, Mishlei could have said the zevach of the Rishaim is a toeva because he doesn't do tshuva, and it's bad for another reason because he's tricking people. The Mishlei says that one toeva quality is increased by the fact that he's doing it to trick other people. So I think that's going to be a key to understanding the idea here, that it's the same, whatever is being called abominable is present merely in the fact that he's not doing tshuva, but it is increased in the fact that he's trying to trick other people to think he's a tzaddik. So what is this toeva quality here?
Well, I mean, it does seem obvious that Rasha doesn't want to do shiur.
Right.
I think we get more out of the pasuk saying that he's trying to trick people.
Yeah, right. I think the fact that he's trying to trick people shows something about how he's responding to his not doing tshuva. Because I think if I asked you why doesn't the Rasha want to do tshuva, you'd probably say, well, what would you say?
He doesn't care about it.
Okay, he doesn't care about it, and I think it's even more than he doesn't care about it. Is he doesn't want to change his ways, right? Like he's involved, he's happily involved in rishus, he doesn't want to change his ways. So the fact that we're saying that what makes it abominable, see, and that's the thing is, and I'm making an assumption here. I don't know if I have this. I don't know if I have this on good authority, and feel free to challenge me if you know a source that says otherwise. I don't think we say that anyone who brings a korban without doing tshuva. I don't think we say that that's an abomination. In other words, like let's take for example, I know we don't have korbanos now, but what do we say about a person who says vidui and doesn't do tshuva? Yeah, but we say more than it's nothing. You said it yesterday. Yeah, didn't you say it yesterday?
Yes,
yeah,
I
right.
said that,
Total v'sheres biyado, right? Is he's going in a mikveh holding the source of his impurity, right? Which, depending on how you understand, is not nothing because he's still better off.
Yeah.
He has to let go of the shares. But the point is we don't say you're an abomination, right? We say that you're not doing a complete tshuva, you're not doing a real vidui, So I'm going to take the assumption here that like if you're a Rasha and you bring a korban and don't do tshuva, then you're then that's an abomination. And the clue is the fact that he's doing it in this case to trick people, and that there's some sort of common denominator here. I'm going to read something. I don't know if this is relevant, but I when I was going through my Mishlei spidey sense went, so I want to read it just in case it's relevant here. So in Tehillim Nun Aleph, okay, we gotta help David get more Tehillim because he missed we missed the Tehillim last week. Yeah. This is the parak about David and Melech. Well, the intro says it. Right. So this is the David and Melech's Tehillim in association with being rebuked by Nasan Hanavi and then doing tshuva. Okay. So he says, where does the context start? Okay, I'm just going to start with where I highlighted it. Kilo sachbot zevach be'etena ola lo tirtze. So David Melech says to God, you don't desire an offering, or I would give it. An ola you do not want. Zivche Elokim, what are the zvachim of Hashem, of God? Ruach nishbara, a broken spirit. Lev nishbar v'nidke. Wait, where's the asachta? Yeah, lev nishbar v'nidke, a heart that is broken and crushed. Elokim lo sivzeh, God, you will not despise that. Okay, so it's making a link between, he's saying you don't want a korban b'maisa, like an actual korban. What's the real korban is a broken heart and a lowly spirit. Okay, so the Radak has a good little explanation about how this works in relation to korbanos here. Kilo tachbos, you don't want. Im yadati shetachbot zevach al ha'avon. If I knew that you wanted an offering on the iniquity, eteno, so I would give it. Val yadati, but I know ki ata rota yoser believe nishbar. But I know that you want more than that, a broken heart. Again, broken heart in Hebrew doesn't mean like it is in English. It doesn't mean like sad. Okay, broken heart means like well, I guess this is kind of part of the question. Okay, broken heart is in the category of also like a Yeah, ruach nishbara, right? Shval ruach, right? Nidke, right? So we'll have to like define that. Nishav believe nishbar lefanecha. Now I'm doing tshuva with a broken heart in front of you. The alpha p shetziva hakel b'korbanos im havidu v'tshuva. So now the Radak is responding to the fact, how could David say God doesn't want korbanos, right? That is blatantly false. So he's saying, even though God commanded us in korbanos with vidu and tshuva, lo tziva b'korbanos ela al hashoke. Okay, this might be an important point for our Rasha friend here. He's only a friend because we're using him for learning Mishlei. Yeah, don't be friends with Rashaim. He says God only commanded korbanos on shoke, right, on something that's unintentional. Who mazid, but this is mazid. Haya, this was mazid, meaning David Melech's sin was mazid. Okay, don't tell Chazal that. Right. Anyone who says that David sinned is only making a mistake, unless you listen to my Sunday shiur about how that's not true. The ein b'chet hamezid korban, and there's no such thing as a korban for a chet that is b'mezid, right? Ella hatshuva b'leiv nishbar v'nidka. The only thing you can do for a korban that's mezid is teshuva with a broken and crushed heart. And then with a chet between you and another person, you need to do tshuva and vidu, and you also need to make it up to him. The ikar tama korbanos, the essential reason for korbanos, lo tziva hakel aleim, ella l'shaber halev ulevatel taivas haguf milibo. The main reason God commanded them is to break the heart and to negate the taiva of the body from his heart. Uvesrefas ha'emurim dimion shesoref gam ha'taivas ha'bahamios. The Sefer HaChinach gives a really good summary of this in what do you call it? In the Sefer HaChinach. In Sefer HaChinach on Truma, on building the Mikdash. I'm just going to read that part here. In Truma 21, is it 21? No, it's not 21. That would have been cool. It's 95. Yeah, I'm just going to read this. I'm just going to read it in English here. He gives three interpretations of a korban, but this one that Radak is referring to is spelled out here in a nice way. He says that, there is yet another way in which the heart is bestirred by an animal offering through the similarity, since the bodies of man and animal resemble one another in all their features, being differentiated only by the fact that seichel was given to the one and not the other, right? You are essentially an animal, you're a rational animal. So the only thing that differentiates you is the rationality. Now, since the physical man leaves the boundary of the seichel at the time of the sin, he ought to know that then he enters into the boundary of animals, as this alone sets them apart. Right. So in other words, whenever you do a chet, like Chazal say, that the only time a person only sins when they are possessed by a spirit of folly, right? Or to use contemporary references, the only time you slap Chris Rock in the face in public is when you're overcome by a spirit of folly. And at that moment, you're acting like an animal. For this reason, he was commanded to take a body of flesh like himself and bring it to the site chosen for the ennobling exaltation of the intelligence. That's how he defines the base of Mikdash, it's a makom ilui haseichel, right? A place for the elevating of your intelligence. And thence he is to burn it, to eradicate its memory. It is burned completely in place of his body, this in order to form a strong conception in his heart that the entire business of a body without intelligence must perish and become completely void. So I think that's I don't know if that's exactly what the Radak is saying. It's a great interpretation of korbanos, right? So that's what he's saying here, though, that ikar tama korbanos lo tiva ka'aleim ela l'shabir halev ulevato taivas haguf milibo, to recognize that this is the cause of my chet. And you're doing this as a facilitator of your tshuva, not in place of your tshuva. Uvesrefas ha'emurim, and when you burn the parts that are offered, dimion shesoref gama taivas habahamios. It's like you're burning the animalistic desires. And the reason why I wanted to read the Sefer HaChinach is to show it's not like we hold that animal desires are bad. It's that we hold that if you are a human being who is negating your human component, then as a human, your animal desires are worthless. In fact, they're worse than worthless because they actually lead to harm. V'tziva b'chet hanase b'shogeg ki akel hu hayodeh halavavos im hu shogeg omezid v'lo ha'makriv hakorban. And God knows if your sin was b'shogeg or not. Yeah. Okay. So that's like overview of korbanos. Yeah.
Okay. I have a different.
Sure. Was it different approach from the Metzudas David.
Yeah. Sorry, I shouldn't have.
Yeah, we have to. I was doing this to answer the questions. Yeah, I do want to hear your approach, but I just want to not lose track here. So I think this might give us insight more into the what makes the Rasha's korban a toeva. The fact that he's quickly catch you up. Get the pasuk here. So we're saying that if a Rasha brings a korban without doing tshuva, then that's an abomination. Okay, and then if he brings it to make people think he's a tzaddik, like, oh, look at this guy, he's bringing korbanos, then that makes the abomination worse. So we're trying to figure out what the idea is according to that way of reading the pasuk. Yeah. Yes, I think this might give us insight into the toeva thing. So first of all, I mean, it's not. I think this is like implicit in just the facts about korbanos. Not only is the Rasha not doing tshuva, but we're not talking about a guy who's only doing korbanos unintentionally, doing sins unintentionally. We're talking about a guy whose life is characterized by intentional sins, right? So it's also a misuse of the institution of korbanos as a whole, right? Like it'd be one thing if you had a person. Let's compare this to an average person. Average person does a sin b'shogeg, okay? Let's say he whatever, like he doesn't look into, I don't know, into the kashrus status of something, and like he ends up like eating something that's not kosher, and he's like, whoops, I didn't know the halacha, right? But it's shogeg, right? And then he brings a korban, but he doesn't do. I guess we wouldn't really bring the korban. Okay, whatever. Forget the case. Okay, Shabbos violation, right? And he brings a chatas, and he doesn't really do tshuva because like he's not really like on board with it, but like that's a guy who's not going out of his way to live a lifestyle of mazid, of intentional sins. This guy is out of the entire realm of korbanos, yet he's still engaging in the institution. He's not doing tshuva in a way that the whole institution is there to promote, and he's doing it to make people think that he is a tzaddik, and that he's somehow like making up for this.
I mean, he seemingly isn't trying to use all the institutions for whatever he sees as like him at the end, and it will only also in his framework.
Right.
Where one, he's trying to only like bring this zebach wherever it is in a way that will benefit him.
Right.
And two, he's not actually looking at how what the institution's trying to get you to. He's deciding what the institution's really. Okay,
so I think that is going to be the key idea. Okay, which is as follows, and I'm just discovering this now from what you're saying. I didn't have an idea here, right? So, korbanos lishma, like for the actual reason, is in the framework of objective reality. It's in the framework of God, of Ratzon Hashem, right? Where you are recognizing there is an objective order to existence and to how human beings should live. And you are using the korban with tshuva and vidui to align yourself with that. The Rasha is in a completely subjective framework. And it's a twofold subjective framework. One is he's in a framework where I am imposing my will and value system on reality, right? I don't care about the objective framework. I don't care that this is objectively, harmful, and that I'm not living like a human being, and that I'm ignoring justice, and I'm crushing people in terms of like to get what I want. And what's the other subjective framework he's in, other than his own like subjective framework, is the social framework. I care about what people think of me, and I want to maintain the image of someone who is righteous in God's framework, So it would be one thing, like I would have some admiration for the Rasha. There's a certain admiration for a Rasha who completely ignores the social, like he's not doing it because of what people think of him. He's doing it because he's a Rasha lishma. Like I have a vision of reality where I'm on top and I want to make this happen, and I don't care if people laugh at me. I don't care if people like look down on me. I'm going to make this happen. But this guy wants to be viewed as a tzaddik in a framework that he doesn't even like hold by. Yeah.
Well, so I hear that. Alternatively, you could also, I think, say that the Rasha, he doesn't really care what people think about him.
Yeah.
But he realizes that the way in which he can best infiltrate and corrupt the system is by getting people to think that he's a good person.
Yeah.
And so therefore then he's taking the entire institution that's supposed to be helping the system in order to attack the system. I
like that better. And the reason why I like it better is because it's more in line with what my understanding of a Rasha is, right? He has one goal, which is I want to be on top. Right. And if people are going, again, same reason I used the example yesterday is is like, same reason why a lot of these people who are involved in like Bernie Madoff type things give to tzedakah, because they win people's trust and admiration so that they can get away with more of their Russia climbing to the top. Yeah. Okay. That's even better. Right. Yeah. So he's using a framework. He's using an institution. So what can we just name? What is it that makes this a toeva then? It sounds like what we're saying here is the fundamental thing that makes it toeva is the same thing that makes the Rasha himself a toeva, is that he is basically trying to supplant the objective framework of justice with his own like system, alternative system at which he's at the top, right? A complete overriding of everything. And it's a kol shekain because he is warping the system itself and making people think that he's actually engaging it in the correct way, and abusing it like in that way. Yeah. So what we really need to do, though, to figure out the idea of the pasuk is, who is this talking to, and that's going to be related to what's the havamina here. By the way, I feel like this explains why it's in Mishlei, because it is about the Rasha. This is not essentially about korbanos, right? This is really about how the Rasha operates and showing the extent, or showing how it plays out in the area of korbanos here, and like, let's say when the Nevi'im talk about this, they're talking to people who are like, misusing the institution of korbanos and trying to direct them to use the institution of korbanos correctly. I feel like this is closer to like David's intuition about, maybe this is talking about how we relate to the Rishayim, yeah. So I think that's the last question we need in order to figure this out, is who is, what is this pasuk trying to teach us, basically? Like the practical, the audience, what's the subject? I mean, one thing that we see, by the way, I don't know if this is the idea, but one thing that emerges from here is, the pasuk is assuming that you could identify this person as a Rasha, right? Because if you couldn't identify this person as a Rasha, then you're not going to think of the pasuk. So when you have someone who is a Rasha, who operates like a Rasha, and they do something like this, I think that's where this pasuk is talking. The pasuk is talking to a person who might make a mistake when he sees a Rasha doing something like this. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that on that, so there are certain places, right, that we like to view in pristine ways.
Yeah.
Right, and we like to view, or we say this thing, it has a good purpose or good result that it's aiming towards.
Yeah.
And so therefore, then we see everything that is related to that as good.
Yeah.
And that can create a blindness to, right, that there can be like infections into the system.
Yeah.
And so a person, right, you see someone giving a korban, and your natural inclination is going to be that this person's doing it for a good reason, right? Because that's just your overall relationship to the system,
right?
And it's just reminding you that you do have a blind spot here, and so be careful.
That's good. And I want to say that it could be several motives here. One is, you're saying it's because of how you relate to the system, and look, the guy brought a korban, like he's good, right? That's like, one's based on how you relate to the system. I think, though, that there are other cases where you don't want to face the fact that this person actually is a Rasha, and it's much more convenient for you to believe that they've reformed their ways, either because you don't have to deal with them practically, or you don't, let's say, I mean, look, this is an unfortunate situation, is that there are cases where you're very close to someone, like, let's say like a community member or like a family member, and they do something extremely wicked, and you're kind of grasping onto anything that will allow you to believe that they've like turned a new leaf and that they've changed. Yeah. No, Sean, yeah.
Third thing, which is that, which I think is, I'm not sure if it's in between or similar, but that on the flip side, where you have, that the institution is corrupt, but that it's supposed to be a good institution, and so you don't want to, so you'll defend the institution because, because you believe in the institution as a whole, and you're not willing to, like, you're afraid that if you accept its rottenness, then it's just going to become a rotten thing. And
that's, I mean, I was cringing because that's what's going on. I mean, not just now, but like that's what's going on in the world with, I'm sure that Judaism is facing, not Judaism, Jews are facing their like Catholic Church reckoning of like all these cases of like abuse, and that are occurring like by alleged like gedolim and rabbis and stuff like that. And people don't want to face the fact that like there could be major corruption of like covering these things up in the in the rabbinate, because it would taint their view of like the purity of like this whole echelon of society. So they just don't want to face that. I was gonna say one more thing here. Hold on just a second. I haven't forgotten about you, David. Hold on.
Okay.
I had one more point here.
I got a lot more shooting out of the cannon too. So
What was that?
I got a lot more shooting out of the cannon too.
Okay. Yeah. So essentially what this is telling you to do, this is not what I was going to say, but so essentially what this is telling you to do is if you identify someone as I know what I was going to say, that this is also halacha, right? Halacha is if there is someone who has a reputation as so people know about the halacha of dan l'kafskus, right? Mm-hmm. That if you have a person who has a reputation as a tzaddik and they do something that is ambiguous and really looks bad, you are chayav to judge it favorably, right? Assuming that it's still ambiguous. Obviously, you find out evidence that they did something bad, and that's a different story. And if it's an adam who's a Beinoni who you don't know, so it's meritorious to judge them favorably. But if it's a Rasha who has a known reputation for Rasha, and they do something that looks very good, but there's room for ambiguity, you're chayav to judge them unfavorably and say that they had an ulterior motive, right? So it's actually halacha in that case, and this is like a good example of that. But the practical application. So what's the subject? The subject is really like not being duped by the seemingly righteous acts of Rashaim. And the practical application is to continue to treat them as a Rasha and to not accept the fact that they did tshuva when they do something that looks like they did tshuva here. And the audience is people who could potentially be, harmed by these blind spots, or allow harm to be perpetuated based on these blind spots, depending on where you are in society. And the Havamina is all these things that Sean and I were saying here of like, you don't want to believe it. You don't want to change your view of the institution. You think that Torah is good and has this purifying thing. Like you like the guy really looks like he changed, a lot of these practical Havaminas. Okay, good. So we answered all the questions. And this is why, again, so, when I did my, hold on, let me just see where I put him. I just want to just do a little advertisement on where did I put? Okay, when we did the S tier ranking, tier, yeah. Did I just call it the tier ranking? Mishlei tier ranking. Yeah, when we did our Mishlei tier ranking, we put Metzudas David in the A realm. This is what I mean. This is like a perfect example of this because Metzudas David gave us just in a few sentences a complete answering of all of our questions and a nice idea, and he consistently does that, so I just want to he doesn't need me to pat him on the back, but I feel like it's unappreciated. I think because Metzudas David has a running commentary type style, it's very easy to think that he's not giving you ideas. And this is a case where he literally answers or helps us answer all of our questions. Yeah. Okay. David, you're on.
Okay. Before I'll say the other approach I was trying to figure out if there's a way that I can connect this to the past Pesukim. We just had Bates and then we had Atzel and now Rasha. I was trying to see if
okay, nice. Good effort.
I couldn't, but I mean
okay, good effort. Good effort.
I'll put it
yeah.
out there if else anything.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, I also don't sense that it's connected. I sense that this is a new subject. Yeah.
Other approaches, I think, contrary to the idea we had started yesterday.
Yeah.
That Rishaim do have. Okay, actually, let me say this first. I'll go with the neutral premeditation here.
Okay.
Okay. Possibly even positive premeditation.
Okay.
But okay, the Rishaim do have the general way they're working of these negative things.
Yeah.
Though they do have within themselves some certain things that we'll call positive things that they see as a good to do.
Yeah.
And I think in a more objective way, not just serving themselves. So Rishaim will also they'll bring this off. They will do things for the good, but there's a certain a toiva, a perverseness in they're doing things for the good, yet at the same time their general way of operating is for the bad.
Yeah.
And what that will then happen is then within himself, he will have a very twistedness that will come out through this. And now two things. One, either for the Rasha himself, he will now, when he goes about doing things, he'll be very, very uncertain about what he's going about doing. And that will lead to him doing a lot of misactions while he's very internally twisted.
Okay.
And also for other people who are looking at him, and maybe this goes down a little bit what you're just saying, people will see him and say, oh, well, he actually he did seemingly just do this good thing for an objective reason. So maybe he's good. Well, he also has these other bad things about him. And so then maybe going down that being down with Kova.
Oh, yeah.
Even though he is doing these, even though he is actually bringing a zevach, it still is latoyva, and so don't see it for the positive. Even though he actually is doing this action itself as positive.
Yeah.
But overall, he's going to do things for negative, and don't view him as a person.
Okay. So let me try saying back what I'm hearing from you, and tell me what I'm missing, because I do feel like I'm missing stuff.
Sure.
So the Rasha is someone who internally has these flaws and these problems and these distortions, but it's possible he could do this even for to do a good act for a good reason. But you have to realize that, I feel like I said this last week. Like when we're talking about habits, like eating one healthy meal doesn't make you healthy. Like doing one workout doesn't make you fit, right? So doing one good action doesn't negate or override all of the bad stuff that you have done. That bad stuff came from somewhere in you as the Rasha, and you are going to continue to do that stuff. And this is a piece of the picture. Like, in other words, it would be a distortion if you, let's say you knew 100% that he did this for the right reasons, for however way, it would be a distortion to deny that objective reality. But you also have to recognize that reality is going to be absorbed back into the overall character and trajectory of the Rasha. All right, what am I missing?
Okay, so that was, I think, down the route of. I was trying to say two different ideas. So I was down the second idea of, okay, so don't see him positively still.
Right.
The first idea I was trying to say is that since he does overall operate in this bad framework, then when he does these positive actions, that will start twisting him, and he will start having these, internally he'll start being unsettled. Yeah. And that will lead to further misactions, and that will end up hurting him too.
Okay. Here, this is not a knockout question or anything like that. The only reservation I have about this is I feel like the idea we got from Metzudas David really was much more unique to a Rasha specifically. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that idea is also true, but that would be true of a Mishlei, like a Ksil or Neviel, or other people like that as well. Okay. So I'm just wondering why Rasha specifically. And also abomination. I feel like the idea of an abomination is, I'm not hearing a unique idea about abomination here. So that's what I would say, maybe, to develop.
I'm having a hard time putting the pasuk now.
Okay. All right. No, but it was a good step for several steps though. One more approach I just want to expose you to, because I want to move on to a different pasuk tomorrow, is look at the נחmiash, who is to the left.
Where does he fall in the ranking?
Where does he fall in the ranking? I don't remember. Mishlei, what do we call it? Tier ranking. The נחmiash. And by the way, these were not objective rankings. These were how I use them. He's a C. Yeah. But I had a whole explanation for how the thing goes. Yeah. I can send you the video if you're interested. Okay. So he says, Zevach Roshayim Toeva Af Ki Bazima Yavienu Zevach Kol Korbanos. Healed Zevach is not just something that you bring that you're doing tshuva for. It's all korbanos. V'tama pasuk, and the meaning of the pasuk, Zevach Roshayim Toeva Afilu Korbanos Nedava, even their voluntary korbanos. Kal v'chomer im yavi chatas v'asham al chatas v'asham she'asa. Okay, so he's saying that the second half of the pasuk is talking about korbanos that he's not doing tshuva for, but the first half is about other korbanos. Okay, so we don't have time to develop that idea, but just to think about, I think it's not going to be too hard to develop an idea here based on the framework we set up, that if you think about what the purpose of other korbanos are and how the Rasha's entire existence is antithetical to that, then you'll see why those are toeva. And then you could just plug in the Metzudas David's interpretation of the first half into the נחmiash's interpretation of the second half, and then see what idea emerges from the entire thing. But yeah, if you have approaches, you can post it in the discussion group. Yeah. So a quick summary of Metzudas David's idea in the last minute here. So according to Metzudas David, we're saying that the idea is about the pasuk is telling you to be on guard against Rashaim, right? That even when they engage in an institution like Korbanos, which is designed to be good, their whole existence is antithetical to that, because they're not subordinating themselves to God's framework. They're really trying to impose their own framework on objective reality, and they're using those tools to infiltrate, for their own purposes. And you can't allow yourself to give into these havaminas that, korbanos are so good, they can make everyone good, or this guy really looks sincere, or I really want him to change, so I'm going to believe that he changed, because then you're going to be giving into this blind spot that's going to lead to allowing the Rasha to have further corruption. Okay, good.
Nice.
All righty.
Yeah.
Linetter, new pasuk tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks.